In this video, I'm going to be showing you the steps that I take in order to give my client a medium taper, 2 on the top, and tapers all the way around, no enhancements and no beard trim. I'm going to take you exactly through the steps that I take, so follow along and be sure to stick around to the end so that you do not miss the final results. Here I'm going in with the long toothpick, just lifting the hair off the scalp and just being able to get an idea of the length that we're working with and actually the density that I have so that I know exactly how to approach this haircut. When doing this, you also want to keep in mind the hair growth pattern so you know exactly which way to go when you want to go with the grain. Here I'm going in with the lever completely closed on my number 2 just so that I can get to that true number 2 guard length. And so now I'm going slowly and just taking my time finding what is with the grain so that I do not gap my client or make any patches or inconsistencies throughout this hair. I want to keep it dark as possible and just lay it down to its natural length. Now that everything's laid down, I'm gonna go in with the lever completely closed, going up to about where the ear meets the head and where the eye ends, just so I can get a reference point of where I'm gonna start this taper off. And I'm giving it like an arched effect just so that it can create just like a bursted effect. Here I'm going in with the lever completely open, and I'm going up about 1/2 inch to 1 inch, giving myself enough room to create gradiency and make it so that I can have enough room to take this line out when I come back down to it. My next step, I want to go in with the number 1 guard with the lever completely closed, and I'm going up about 1/2 inch to 1 inch again here, keeping the same exact shape, that arched effect, just so that I can keep the consistency throughout this taper through and through. Number 2 guard with the lever completely closed, and I'm finishing off with the number 2 just because I know that it's a 2 on the top, and so a 2 with the grain on the top allows me to go off the heel of the blade against the grain and blend right into the number 2 smoothly that I had on top. And here I'm just gonna start brushing it just so that I can get an idea for where the hair wants to lay naturally as he brushes, keeping in mind to debulk the area over top of the ear just so that I can set myself up in preparation for lining up the client so that this area also gets the tapered effect, as well as in the area in the C-cup, lightening up the density there just to be able to keep a definition in my line when I go to line up the C-cup. Dropping back down to the 1.5 guard here, and I'm just following up under the 2 guard, right up under the 2 guard with the lever completely closed on the 1.5 guard just to lighten up any darkness that I couldn't get out with the number 2 without pushing up this taper too high. I just want to be able to continue that blended effect as I work my way back down. And I'm just brushing the hair back down to its natural position. As I go lower in the fade, I'm going to use a little less pressure just so that I can maintain the density at the top. Dropping back down to my 0.5 guard here, I'm going to follow up and take out that very bottom line that I put in with the lever completely open with no guard, and just slowly but surely erase that line little by little, again using light pressure because I don't want to take this too high. And I said maintaining the density at the top because even though I'm getting that tapered effect, I want to still maintain darkness in the top so that it creates that contrasted effect and give me that tapered look. I don't want to take too much of the darkness out of the top and it looks like a choppy blend. I just want to be able to maintain the darkness that's there, as well as in taking out any lines or inconsistencies in the taper overall. I open up the lever here just to go up a little higher in the taper, using a little less pressure. And now I'm dropping back down to the lever halfway here just to take out that very bottom line. And I do this in order to control the taper as much as possible, just to maintain that density at the top again and work my way down so that the taper is in my hands. I don't have to take this too high at all, and I'm using the lever completely open as I go higher and closing up as I go lower. Same exact steps here on the other side, setting in that reference point where the ear meets the head and where the eye ends initially. And notice how I flick out as I set in my lines. I don't want to set in a hard line, but I do want it to be as noticeable enough so that I can come back and take out any hard lines that's in there. Mind you, I don't need a hard line. I just need to noticeably see a transition from one guard length to the next. And as I get to the top guard length, as you can see with the number 2 guard, I just want to completely just soften up any blend at the top as much as possible without creating any lines. So I'm using the heel of the blade, but I also just want to start working my way into the actual style that's on top, because the top guard is used in order to complete the top portion of the blend. And that's by setting in the last initial step so that you don't have to revisit it or come back and push this line up higher than what it is. Dropping back down to the 1.5 here, right up under the number 2. Again, following up and just slowly but surely lightening up that very bottom line and completing the transition from bottom to top, essentially, and no longer focusing on the top area as much as I am on the bottom, just to completely return to that line that I put in initially, the bald line, and that's just to slightly lightening up that bottom line. And here I'm down to the 0.5 again, attacking the bottom line, lightening it up as much as possible while still maintaining the darkness or the density at the top. I just want to slowly but surely take out that very bottom line, the initial line that I set in. Same exact steps in the back. The only difference is you have more area to work with and more grounds to cover. So here I'm going in, setting in my line initially towards the bottom of the ears, but everyone doesn't have the same profile. So here, this profile works with that under the ears. However, if the client has a longer neck or whatever, and it would be too high to take it to the bottom of the ear, just go to the most dense area that allows you to get a solid line if you were to set your first initial guideline and come up high enough to get a solid foundation and then work from that. But you don't want to set your guideline in too low, and you definitely don't want to go over top of the bottom of the ear. After I followed up with the 2 going against the grain at the very top, now I'm going with the grain again just to debulk or lighten up that area as much as possible so that it creates a smooth effect. Here I'm going in with some holding spray just to lock in the hairline. And as that's drying, I'm just gonna start in the nape area and start setting in those lines just to pull the nape taper together. the C cup, I like to start at the densest or most fullest part at the top of the C cup, and then start at the fullest part at the bottom and work my way in the middle and connect the two. Now I'm setting in my vertical bars just so that I can create the equal width on the forehead before I go in and set in the first line in the middle and start to connect the two at the top of the vertical bar. And we'll start in the middle and work my way out on each side. A good reference point for the vertical bars is literally towards in between the middle and the end of the eyebrow and towards the outside of the eye. And again, I'm following up in the middle and working my way out just to connect the top of the vertical bar. When doing the razor work, you just want to angle the razor at a 45-degree angle. Stretch the skin with the opposite finger and pull back to the line. Do not go past the line. Do not stop before the line. Allow yourself to smoothly guide back to the line. You don't want to skip the blade, and you also do not want to not stretch the skin enough, in which case we'll allow you to skip, in which case we'll cut your client and take a chunk out of their skin. And if you made it this far throughout this video, I appreciate you for watching. And this is the final results. And if you like this video, you learned anything, please share this video with a friend, family member, or fellow barber. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell. My name is Kel, and I'll catch you in the next one.